Nathan Weinland, 3 Max Alliance, and there's only one topic for today: green screen. So I'm coming to you today from in front of this beautiful fountain, or maybe from Paris, out here in front of the Eiffel Tower. I can just hear the little accordions playing over there and the wine and cheese. Sounds good. Maybe this beautiful meadow here with the birds chirping and the bees buzzing. That's just wonderful through here. Actually, I'm in Fort Collins, so maybe I'm downtown here in downtown Fort Collins in our old town. People wandering by, wondering why I'm talking to myself. Actually, of course, I'm not in any of those places. I'm standing in front of a green screen. Well, let's take a minute to take a look at what a good green screen setup is with good lighting and some of the tricks of the trade when it comes to green screen. And most of that is all about lighting. Let's start by checking out the green screen itself. Come on in, let's take a look at my setup. So obviously I just took over a room down in the basement where I could leave some of the insulation here exposed, which does some nice sound dampening and so forth. And really all we're after is just a nice green screen. So some of the tricks of a green screen: get a semi-good quality green screen. There's a lot that gets sold that are just like cheap bed sheets. But if you get a nice one, then it holds its shape well, it doesn't wrinkle up a lot. And that's another good thing to use, is a steamer. Once you get this hung up here, steam out those wrinkles and it makes keying your green screen much, much simpler. As you can see, we just used some little bungees and some clamps here to stretch out our green screen. And this one comes with a green screen rack, which allows us to set the green screen up. It also came with a black screen and a white screen. Now, you don't have to get a full-size green screen. If you're looking at this and you're saying, well, this is way too big for my setup, they even make little collapsible ones that you can just pop open and set up behind you. And those work pretty darn well. Keep in mind that the more permanent of a setup you can have, the easier your keying is going to be, because the easier your lighting is going to be. When you start looking at some remote locations, or you start looking at some things along that line that you're just setting up in a corner someplace, keep in mind that your post is going to take a little longer. So what does keying out a green screen mean? The reason that you have a green screen is just so that your entire background is a uniform color that you're probably never wearing. Now, I have definitely seen some people wearing this color, but it's pretty rare. They also have blue screens in case you need to film something that's green, so there's a variety of different colors. But since the background is all uniform, then a program like Premiere, or there's several others that are out there, can then identify that color and completely remove it. So you can drop in something else and you can move around in front of it without having any issues of that looking really fake and different. But it all comes down to the lighting. I'm sure you've noticed even in movies where something in your brain just says, this isn't quite right, something doesn't feel good about this, and you know it's green screen. You know what it is? It's the lighting. So we've got different lighting that's through here and so forth. So let's talk a little bit about the different lighting. First off, we have this backlight up here, and that backlight shines down and gives you a nice crisp outline from the back. It allows the software to better differentiate you from the background. It gives you a nice clean outline. Also, you'll notice that it's not very bright. We don't have that cranked way up because we're not trying to create a light source coming from back over the top of us. That's where, when you're in that nice meadow and the sun's over there, but the backlight's back here, it just doesn't feel very real. You look like you're standing in front of a green screen. And typically, that's okay. It depends on how much quality you're trying to get out there. If you're looking at just doing a client invite to a party or something, of course they know you're standing in front of a green screen and not shooting from Moscow in front of the Kremlin. However, you want it to be as professional as you can, just so that it feels good and your brain's not yelling, there's something drastically wrong, this is totally fake. Let's look at some of the other lights. So we're using 2 screen lights here, and we have those cranked up on high. The idea of the screen light is to eliminate those bright spots and those dark spots. You'll notice that if I was to take this light and change it, we've got pretty much a uniform pattern across that. That really helps the software be able to key out that as one color. It doesn't look like it's 2 or 3 different colors to the program. But if we don't get that lighting set up right, we start seeing real bright spots on the background, and now we've got good shade up here. This is really bright, and a lot of cameras will have a false color setting that you can flip on, which will show you when you have areas that are overexposed or underexposed. And if you can get this a nice uniform look to it, then it's going to be much easier to key out. We just use light boxes that are compact fluorescents, but there is some wonderful LED light panels as well, and they're getting much cheaper. When they first came out, they were very, very expensive, and now they're relatively reasonable. One of the other things you want to make sure that you do when you're standing in front of a green screen is if you have lights like this that are square, you want to make sure that your angle to them is in front of them. Notice as I move back, I'm picking up more and more light from these sources, and we don't want a bunch of light coming from the side to me. So you want to make sure that these lights are shining behind you and not on you. So you want to make sure that they get angled in, or you get in front of them to where you lose that backlight behind you. That's what we have a backlight for. Let's take a second and talk about this key light here. So this key light is on a stand which moves back and forth. It's basically on a boom with a weight bag in the back. So it allows you to move it around the set. That's going to mimic where your light source is for your background. So if you're standing in a dark building or in an office building where there's just fluorescence, you don't really even need a key light. But again, if we're back in that meadow and the sun's shining in from over here, you want to match your key light to where you're at so that it doesn't look weird with the shadows and so forth. Your brain is very good at picking up those things. And then of course we have our fill light. Our fill light just gives us the different brightnesses. Oops. The fill light here just gives us our different brightnesses on the front of the subject. So we'll have that key light maybe coming in from the side, but we have to illuminate the front of the subject to some degree in order for it to look real. So we want to make sure that that matches and feels good within the background. You don't have to spend a ton on a lighting setup. This lighting setup here was relatively inexpensive in the terms of a few $100s, as I recall. Some of the other lights maybe run a little bit more, and of course those LED light panels can get real expensive. One last light that we have never used, but I have seen used very well, is a hair light. And it's a light that sits just right above the subject and shines down on top of them. That key light, you want to make sure that you can move around to the point where that sun is coming down at exactly that angle. And it's nice to have one that you can adjust the temperature of as well, so that if you're trying to match a much more sunny day and you need to turn that a little bit more yellow, you could adjust that from maybe a very blue fluorescent light down to a very yellow, more natural light. This is a Voltrox light, and what's nice about it is you can adjust the temperature right back here in the back. And you can adjust the brightness as well. So if you want to tone it down if it's way too bright, or if you want to turn it more yellow, or it'll also do quite a few different colors. It'll just roll all the way through the whole spectrum for you. This makes a really cool light, by the way, when you're shooting perhaps a scene and you want just a little ambient light coming up from behind a plant. You tuck these around and you can get some really cool effects in a room just by dropping these in. Let's take just a second and look in the software and see what it's like keying out that background. Okay, so here we are in Premiere Pro, and what we want to do is go ahead and take this green screen footage and drop in a cool background that we recorded from the event location. So one of the first things that we want to do is go ahead and take under the Effects tab here, and we're looking to key out that green screen. So here's our Ultra key, that's what we're looking for, and we're going to put that on top of the clip. Now we're going to find the eyedropper tool here, there we go, and we're going to grab the color we want it to pull out. So that's going to pull out everything in that color. Now this is where your lighting really gets important, because you'll notice we've got some hot spots there and some dark spots, and we can keep clicking around a little bit and see if we can clean that up and get it a little bit better. Maybe catch one that's a little more uniform, but as you can see, this is just pretty much bad lighting. But we can fix that. We're going to jump over into the settings here, and we're going to go down to make this an aggressive. There we go. Now you can see there's only a little bit, and we can even fix that by grabbing an eyedropper tool again and just grabbing a little bit of a different area. Now that looks nice. So now we've cut out the background. It looks pretty good, and we still have a lot of spillage from light and so forth, and the easiest way to start to correct that is, first off, let's change this zoom. Let's zoom in about 150, 200%. Notice now we can really see the detail around my beard. We can see where that light spillage is coming over, and we can start to make some corrections there. So let's go into the matte cleanup area, and we're going to start with the choke. Now the choke is going to pull in or out how much of that edges all right along we're actually going to make transparent and what we're not. So we're going to pull that in a little bit to crisp up. Ooh, that's already looking a little better. We're going to soften up a bit as well. Try to just soften that edge so it's not so harsh against that background. Get it to blend just a bit better. Now let's take a peek at the spill suppression and see if we can't start to pull in some of that awkward shading that looks real bright in that outline, which I'm sure you've seen on green screen in the past. This is going to start to suppress some of that color that's been pulled over, that green that makes me look ill, now especially right here on my cheek and so forth. So we're going to try to make a few adjustments there with the desaturation, and let's see. Yeah, it's looking a little better there, a little more natural. Notice how that's really starting to blend in. Now, of course, we still got this bright lighting and so forth, and when we throw in our background, we're going to want to kind of correct some of that as well. Let's go ahead and put in that background and see what that looks like with that front image. At some point, we got to know what the lighting is and so forth in the back. Let's just grab a chunk, and we're going to stick it in there. Let's go ahead and unlink that, get rid of the sound portion of it. I don't need background sound in this particular case, though that does make it feel more natural if you can really mute that down and it's just a little bit in the background. Now you can see that we still have a little bit of adjustment to make, but that really does already start to look better with that particular background. I got the lighting in the right spot, that nice bright spot there on the right, and coming over my shoulder, that was a nice placement for lighting based on that backyard, a little darker on the other side. Let's jump in here and adjust the luminance. Now that's going to start to blend me with the background in about the correct lighting. So we can darken me up or brighten me up depending on what that background looks like. As you can see, we needed to darken me up just a little bit there in order to get me to blend in. And I'm starting to look like that's a natural setting for me. And we're just going to make some fine-tune adjustments here. Change that desaturation just a little bit. Looking good. Okay. Should we take a look at it and play through it and see how it turns out? Let's unmute a few of these lines so we can hear what the sound effects are, and let's play it.
Well done. You completed your sign up and you're on your way to testosterone-fueled fame and glory for life. Now let's get on to the rest of the steps.
This is for a fundraising event, and we obviously wanted something that was epic. But now we're blended into the background pretty well, and I can carry that background over to future clips. I hope you find this helpful as just kind of a brief overview of how you would key out green screen in Premiere. By all means, not meant to be an in-depth tutorial. There are plenty of those on YouTube if you really want to fine-tune it, but this is what we do. So in short, you can get decent lighting, nice green screen background and so forth, and not break the bank. I hope this video was helpful. It wasn't meant to be a tutorial on exactly how to key out green screen, just an idea of what you need as far as lighting goes and equipment goes in order to shoot your very own. If you like these videos, share and subscribe, and we'll keep them coming. Have a great day and go make something creative. It's so bright. This is called the beard light.